Hey, football fanatics, it's time for championship week. That's right. The AFC NFC Championship games coming up, and we're going to take a look at those as our games of the week. There's only two, right? There's only two games this week, followed by one in 2 weeks, of course, the Super Bowl out in Las Vegas. And to talk about this weekend's action, we bring back our in-house expert, of course. That is our NFL managing editor, David Kull. And David, these two matchups, boy, man, so many storylines here. But I want to start with the NFC. I want to start with the 49ers. You and I have talked about it over the weeks. Still feel they have the best overall lineup in the NFL as far as the roster goes. So deep, so many things they can do on offense, so many things they can do on defense. They're going to host a team I think a lot of folks in America, at least if they're probably east of the Mississippi, might be rooting for, and that is the Detroit Lions. Of course, that story, the lovable losers finally get good again and try to get to a championship and win one for the first time since 1957. You look at this game, San Francisco hosting it. The last playoff game, Brock Purdy had to come alive at the end of the game against the Green Bay Packers and kind of pull that one out. This matchup, what intrigues you about it? Will it be close, or might we see San Francisco actually pour it on a little bit?
I think it might be closer than a lot of people expect. I think because of the Deebo factor. Deebo Samuel, he's out with, well, right now he has a shoulder injury that makes him probably 50-50 for this game. And if they don't play with Deebo, that really, hurts them offensively because with Deebo, they're like an offensive juggernaut. But without him, they're more ordinary. It makes it easier for the Lions to defend them. They can focus more on Christian McCaffrey. And it really puts an onus on Brock Purdy to have to find other guys in that scheme in order to exploit that defense. So that's a concern there for the 49ers is the fact of whether or not Deebo is going to be able to play. And if he plays, how healthy will he be?
Yeah, it's a great question, too, because I think one of the weaknesses of the Detroit Lions has been that defense. They're sort of a bend, don't break defense. They've given up over 356 yards in the last 3 consecutive games on defense. So you go up against a San Francisco team with Deebo Samuel, with Christian McCaffrey, and boy, you kind of like that matchup there. What does Detroit have to do in order, whether Samuel's there or not, what do they have to do and play against the San Francisco team in order to keep it close enough that their offense and Jared Goff can try to pull something off?
Well, defensively, it's going to be tough because you're right. They can be exploited defensively, especially in the passing game. So they got to make some inroads there. They're going to have to stop Christian McCaffrey first and foremost on the ground. And they are better against the run than they are against the pass. So if they can do a job against McCaffrey and make the 49ers more one-dimensional, that definitely gives them a chance. But then on the other side of the ball, I think the key is they got to keep Jared Goff upright. Okay. They got to keep him off the ground. They got to keep the pressure away from him so he could pick the 49ers apart. And they definitely have the offensive line to do that.
They do. And I mean, it's such a great offensive line in Detroit. And that's why Jared Goff, even though his mobility isn't great, he does create with his feet. I think Jared Goff is one of the great stories in the NFL this year, not getting as much coverage as it probably should. Now, it will, of course, championship week as they roll into San Francisco. But you look at him, too. You talk about pressure. San Francisco with that tough defense. We know Goff, if he's got time, he can pick you apart. If he doesn't have time, if he's under pressure, his completion percentage goes down near about 50%. That San Francisco defense, I think early, they're going to have to set the pace there, aren't they?
No, I think they will. One of the matchups to watch really in this game is going to be between Penei Sewell, who's the all-pro right tackle, against Nick Bosa. And we know all about Nick Bosa, reigning defensive player of the year and all that. But one other area to watch as well is going to be the pressure up the middle, because we also know that Frank Ragnow, all-pro center for the Lions, has been dealing with some issues, some leg issues. And so, there's no way, as they were saying last week on the telecast, they're saying there's no way that guy's going to not play. Okay, he's going to play if he has a broken leg, kind of Jack Youngblood-esque, if you would call it that. That guy's going to be out there whether his leg's attached or not. Okay, but I think the 49ers, they know that Ragnow's a little suspect up the middle right now with his leg. They might try to bring quick pressure on Jared Goff in that game, just knowing how Goff does under pressure. He doesn't perform that well, as you already said. So I think that's where the pressure is going to come, because I think Sewell will do a job against Bosa on the outside. It's just the other parts of the defense I think that will be able to exploit or could exploit Goff in the passing game.
The quarterback on the other side, Brock Purdy, I mean, what a great year he had. Of course, against the Packers, he struggled early in the rainstorm in San Francisco or in Santa Clara. Then he comes alive at the end of the game. Talk about that. What kind of performance are we going to need to see out of him against this Detroit team to make sure San Francisco moves on to another Super Bowl?
Well, I think what that game-winning drive did for the 49ers and for Brock Purdy was give them confidence in knowing, hey, we can come back. We were 0-30, going into the fourth quarter with down by 7 points or more, but now we can actually win a game and come back and win a game, and even without Deebo Samuel. So I think what they proved last week was we can do this. Brock Purdy was 6 of 7 on that last drive for 47 yards. He had a clutch scramble there at the end before the play before McCaffrey's touchdown, 6-yard touchdown run. So I think you're going to see more of the same. They're going to utilize all their weapons. You saw Jawan Jennings getting into the flow in that last drive. He made a couple key catches in the game. He had 5 catches for 61 yards. Chris Conley got in on the act. So they're going to use other guys. If Deebo's not able to play, they're going to spread it around and just take advantage of all the weapons that they do have, whether they have Deebo or not. I think you're going to see much the same as you saw at the end of that game, because they still have plenty of guys there who can do it.
Oh, yeah. Again, deep roster. Now, for those of you that don't know, David hails originally from the Bay Area. So we want to make sure that if there is any bias, we get it out in the open. But, David, this game, can Detroit go in and beat the 49ers, or are you going to pick the 49ers in this one?
I still think the 49ers come away with a victory in this game. I pick it like 30-22. I think the Lions will get some points. They'll be able to do some damage against the 49ers defense. I love the Lions offense in terms of their balance, because Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, Gibbs to me is an X factor in the game because of his ability not only to run, and he's a tough guy to bring down. You can see he runs viciously when he runs with the football. A lot like Pacheco with the Chiefs. So they both are just very physical running backs. And so I like him as a compliment to Montgomery. He's also good out of the backfield catching the ball. So I think they're going to do some damage there, but I still think in the end, the 49ers just have too much. They're just too loaded all the way around. They're playing at home. They haven't lost a home playoff game in 11 years. So I see the 49ers coming out on top.
Oh, only 11 years. Wow. That's not much. No. Yeah. And I'm with you there too. I mean, I know everybody likes the Lions story, and the Lions are a very good team, but man, that's a tough one to go in there to Santa Clara, to Levi Stadium, and come out with a win. So I like the Lions here. All right, let's switch to the AFC now. Just a really crazy, intriguing matchup to me here. And of course, the Kansas City Chiefs head into Baltimore to face who will be the MVP, of course, Lamar Jackson and that Ravens defense. This is the number 1, number 2 defenses in the NFL, by the way. And so there's going to be, I think, some bruising going on in the trenches there. But when you look at this, a lot of folks, I mean, if there's anything you can question about Patrick Mahomes is, can he go on the road and win in the playoffs? Well, he did last week against Buffalo. Okay, check that one off. Now he goes into Baltimore, where on the other side, as great as Lamar Jackson is, the question with Lamar Jackson is, can he win a big game? This seems like a two trains just heading at one another. Talk about this matchup and what makes it so intriguing, besides just being the AFC Championship game.
I absolutely love this matchup when you just start with the quarterbacks. Just when you got a game with Mahomes and Lamar Jackson, you got Mahomes, who is the standard at quarterback in the NFL. Yes. I mean, how can he not be when you have 2 MVPs, you have 2 Super Bowl MVPs, 2 Super Bowl championships? He is the NFL standard. And then you have Lamar Jackson over here, who's going to win his 2nd MVP award. The thing he just doesn't have that he needs on his resume is a Super Bowl. And who's in the way of that? Patrick Mahomes. So this is the perfect clash of Mahomes and Jackson, the 2 best right now in the NFL, going at it against each other in Baltimore, where, like as you said, this is the first road. Well, it is the first road AFC Championship game for Patrick Mahomes, even though it's his 6th consecutive. He's had the previous 5 at Arrowhead Stadium. That's pretty crazy to think about that. But yeah, Lamar Jackson against Patrick Mahomes, that's the matchup of the game in terms of the quarterbacks, although they won't see each other on the field. They'll be watching each other from the sidelines. But in this game, to me, the key is for the Chiefs coming in there is they have to get Lamar Jackson on the ground. Because in the games that Lamar Jackson has lost this year, he lost 3 games in which he started. He didn't start that last game against the Steelers because it was just kind of a game that didn't really matter to them. But in the 3 games that he lost, he got sacked 11 times and he had 5 turnovers. So in order to beat Lamar, you got to get him on the ground and you got to force turnovers from him. Otherwise, you really don't have much of a chance.
Yeah, amazing stuff. Now let's start with the Chiefs defense versus the Baltimore offense, of course, with Lamar Jackson. You look at that Chiefs defense, 21 of the Chiefs' highest snap per player, or per snap players, so players who played the most for the Chiefs. Out of those 21, 17 of them are draft picks or unsigned drafted or unsigned free agents that the Chiefs have drafted. They also have the youngest defense in the NFL at 25.4 years. They're going up against this high-powered quarterback and Ravens offense. Talk a little bit about the Chiefs and what they've been able to do defensively in the matchup against Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, this is, as you said, they have the youngest defense in the league, and but this is really, a tall order for them. I think going into Baltimore to play this offense, that the thing is, you can't let Lamar Jackson extend plays. That's the beauty of Lamar Jackson, and what makes him such a spectacular talent is the fact that he not only can beat you from the pocket, but not just that, he gets out of the pocket, he extends plays with his feet. Of course, he could take off and run and scramble. It's just, how do you account for that? Well, first and foremost, you need to get a push up the middle and get in his face right away, and that's where Chris Jones comes into play. Chris Jones is one of the best, if not the best, defensive tackle in football. I mean, you get arguments from Aaron Donald and people like that, but Chris Jones is probably one of the biggest factors in this game, because he needs to get that push in there. He has 10.5 sacks this year. And they need big plays from the big play guys on defense behind him, like Trent McDuffie, who was an all-pro this year as a corner. So you get the push up there, you get right in Lamar's face, you try to get him on the ground, you force him to make mistakes. That's the key for this Chiefs defense against this Ravens offense. Because if you just let Lamar run around, the more he runs around, the more he's going to beat you.
Well, and I think the Chiefs have to be careful if you watch what Houston did. Houston tied up the back end, and then they let Lamar run free. And I think the Chiefs, one of the strengths of the defense, as you talked about, is their defensive backfield. With Snead back there, all the guys, they have a good opportunity there. But then what happens? If you leave too much space in the middle of the field, guess what he's going to do? He's going to wheel and deal. He's going to run, right? He's not going to run first anymore, which, of course, people were critical of that first. He can throw the ball all over the place, and he's done a better job of that too, Lamar Jackson, but he can also run and kill you there. Now we go to the other side, the Baltimore defense. Of course, Mike McDonald, now a hot head coaching candidate, but that defense in Baltimore, despite the fact that it's Patrick Mahomes, and like you said, he's the standard at quarterback, it's going to be tough. This Chiefs offense is different. It relies more on one or two folks, and it's going to rely more on running the ball, I think, but man, that Baltimore defense, it's tough to run against. It's tough to pass against them as well.
Yeah, I really don't know how you attack this defense, because they have all pros at every level. They do. They have them up front. They have them at the linebacker spot, with Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen. They have Kyle Hamilton now, who in his second year has emerged as probably the best safety in the league. He's definitely that do everything defender who could defend your receiver on the outside. This is pretty crazy. I mean, the guy can defend a receiver, cover a receiver, and you could blitz him off the edge to get to the quarterback. He stuffs the run. He's just like a jack of all trades, really, on defense. And that's been a key for the Ravens this year in making them so good, is that you can move him all over the place. But yeah, I don't know how you attack that defense. They're definitely going to have to run the ball. I love Pacheco because he's such a physical running back, and he just doesn't go down easily. He's just violent, just the way he runs. He gets those legs going, his arms are going. I mean, he's like the most active guy out there on the field. Oh, yeah. They're definitely going to need him. But for Mahomes to have success in this game, he needs a receiver to step up, somebody other than Travis Kelce. I think they're going to try to take away Kelce and just force him to go outside to Rashee Rice or one of those other guys. So, Rashee Rice in particular, he started emerging at the end of the year as a go-to guy. He didn't show up as much last week. I think he caught 4 passes last week, which is okay, but they still had to rely on Kelce to score touchdowns for him. They need Rashee Rice and the other guys, Valdez Scantling, for instance, to be those guys on the outside as options for Patrick Mahomes, because otherwise they're going to have a tough time scoring against this defense. They would anyway, because the Chiefs haven't scored 30 points in 2 months, in a game.
Yeah,
absolutely. 2 months it's been. It was against your Raiders.
Yeah, and I think the Chiefs are also going to have to use their running backs in the passing game. They're going to have to swing those guys out and try to get mismatches against some of those linebackers, because you're right. I think they're going to cover them pretty well. They're going to try to take Kelce away at least, and we'll see how it goes there. It's going to be a fascinating game. Are you taking Baltimore in this one as well, since they're at home?
I don't see how you can't take Baltimore in this game because they're at home, because just they're so good on both sides of the ball. I mean, if you look at them just offensively, of course, with the Lamar factor and, Zay Flowers, who's really emerged this year. Don't forget Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews could return this week as
Yes.
well. And if you have him and Isaiah Likely, I mean, that's just deadly, a deadly duo at tight end. So you got that going on. You got the defense, all pros, like I said, at every level. You got the best kicker probably of all time, Justin Tucker. So, how do you beat this team at home? I don't know how. I see the Ravens winning this game like 28-20.
Yeah, I think it's going to be close. I think, David, the score might even be less than that. I think it could be a defensive matchup that is a knockdown drag out. But I have to tell you, I full bias, I'll make it public. I love Lamar Jackson. He's one of my favorite guys. Love watching him play. Huge fan. But it's hard for me to bet against Patrick Mahomes. Like, the Ravens are a much better team. In fact, the Ravens may be one of the best teams in the last 15, 20 years. That's how good I think they are. But man, Patrick Mahomes just seems to pull the rabbit out of his hat. And so it's funny because I'm watching the line, because Patrick Mahomes in playoff games where the line is 3 or less is 9-1-1 against the spread, and like 11-2 or 10-2 against straight up. So, but I don't think he's ever faced a team like they're going to face in Baltimore. So it's going to be a fascinating game, and we're going to be here all for it. And I know we will have it completely covered up on sportsnaut.com this weekend. So make sure you join us there as well. David, always a pleasure talking with you. The next time we talk, we're going to be talking about the Super Bowl. So we'll have a lot more fun and dissecting the little NFC, AFC, the little game they have every February.
Right, that little tilt they have going on in 2 weeks.
Exactly. David, thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you next week.
Talk to you next week.
All right, for everybody here at Sportsnaut, thanks for joining us. Enjoy the games this weekend, and don't forget all your coverage up on sportsnaut.com. Take care.